King. What?
I'm trying to get jacked, bro, and that's why
give us some advice.
I wanted to ask you about before we moved on from the whole steroids topic, right?
Right. We'll never move on completely.
We'll
How
never
do you
exactly.
feel about SARMs? What do you think about it?
I just basically categorize them the same as I would steroids because they agonize the androgen receptor. And so with that, there's various intensity levels or potency, each different compound. I've taken a few of them. I've taken Austrian, which is known as a lighter compound. I've taken a ligand draw or LGD. I've taken S23, which is supposedly comparable to trend. These are
Dude,
powerful.
I was scared of that S23. I heard the vision, eye effects, side effects.
Yeah, and so people come to me all the time because it's this new fascinating thing, and I think the marketing on them, because it's this gray area, and people sell them as research chemicals, and it's like, give this to your rat, but it's steroids, right? It's essentially the same to me as taking an oral steroid.
Right.
Guys will come to me in their early 20s and say, I want to do an 8-week cycle of RAD 140, and I make them justify it to me. I say, why aren't you taking a low dose of testosterone?
Are you a steroid salesman?
No.
Why are these people coming to you?
Because I give out free advice on it.
Dude,
But I
any
do not-
intellectual, any guy that can kind of piece together a sentence that looks like him is going to have to help people
Yeah.
in the community.
that's a
I mean,
good-
let's be honest.
That's a good point. And I also, because I'm talking about it on my podcast, I make myself open about it. And I just, again, that's a decision that I've made to be open about it. And I couldn't be happier because it just feels, it's like you're living in the closet or something. And it's like, how stressful would that be? To be
I
like,
have
what?
to
I know,
ask-
I'm-
Let's ask Dino about it.
Dude, Dino needs help too, but I have to ask you about a guy that follows me, and I love this guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of a hero of mine, but Mike O'Hearn.
Yeah.
Why does he say that he is all natural and he will never kind of? Is that why people have told me in the community that he's considered a kind of not a joke, but a guy that like you can't really listen to the guy because he's not natural and he won't admit it.
Well, okay. There's a lot to unpack there because I've also now I have to answer as his friend because I've worked out with him a number of times and he's been nothing but sweet to me. And I will speak in superlative terms about, for example, his training knowledge. Right. He is probably the best bodybuilding coach that I've met in person. So not only does he walk the walk at, the question of whether or not he has taken anabolics aside, to be able to look like that at literally any age. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't have a appreciation for what goes into that and the mastery that goes into that.
He's a legend,
right?
A complete unbelievable guy.
Correct. And so if somebody's saying I can't take what he says seriously, I would urge them to go do a workout with him,
right?
Because I'm an advanced lifter. He will give me these smallest tweaks, and he's able to communicate it in such a way that I'm like, every single workout I've done with him, I'm like, I feel like I've leveled up. It's like I now know how to train shoulders way better. And I realized doing my podcast, Haters Will Say, the question of whether or not people take anabolics is very uninteresting to me because ultimately I've seen how that is not such a small percentage of my gains, but it's like, I was 230 naturally,
right?
And I'm 250 now,
and so was
I haven't done
he was
crazy,
a big guy too,
right? Yeah, so it's
genetics
you look at guys,
play a role,
right? You're looking at somebody like that, and the difference between, if you're enhanced or you're not, if you're a genetic outlier. I'm not saying I'm a genetic outlier, but I'm I know I was always accused of doing steroids when I was 16 to 18 because. I also worked. I have never had an issue working really hard in the gym, and some people do, right? And some people are. You're kind of starting from a point where you have a lot more body fat, you have less muscle. So I look like a guy who's on steroids, right?
And I just want to weigh in on this. I mean, when people see my legs, I get accused of being on steroids.
Well, here's the thing. I know guys. I know
like
guys
him on steroids, right?
I know you're on steroids. No, I've known guys who are as skinny as you who take steroids, and it's most people's perception of what that means is very skewed because. You could do, you could be taking Anavar for 20 weeks. It'll gain you some muscle and strength, but you won't look like you're on steroids. So I'm always cautious of looking at guys like Michael Hearn or Simeon Panda going they already would have looked like they're on steroids.
Yeah.
Right. And the broader question of how open can you be about what you've done?
Right.
we're still coming out of an era where if you were doing steroids in the 80s and 90s, you could get banned from, like, there's a Ronnie Coleman on the Jay Leno show said he's all natural in like 1998 or the early.
Wow,
it's like,
that's crazy.
okay, that's where we're coming from. So there really wasn't an option. Only today is there an option for people to actually say, yes, I do this. And that's been like the forefront of that. I think of like Greg Doucette. I think of, you know,
YouTuber.
Say it again.
Great YouTuber. Great.
Oh yeah, yeah. And he's like, I found him from him talking about Eric Konevsky's another guy who like, do you guys know Eric Konevsky?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's funny.
And
He's
right,
us.
he's funny.
He's a fan of the
okay, yeah.
channel.
And I've
bodybuilders
become a big
follow,
fan of him too, actually. But one thing is undeniable. He started from a place of maybe being much skinnier than you. And I think your
flexing.
body's so like, you have
flexing?
a great body. Like when I look at you, I go, I don't know why you'd want to change your body, because I'm sure women are attracted to you. Like that's what I was thinking. I
Oh,
was
they
like,
fucking are.
They
I
are,
believe
big
it. No,
time.
I believe it.
Better
Gets
keep
a lot
your
of pussy,
German
Mark.
wife
You don't
away
want
from me,
this
Mark.
guy gets pussy, dude. We
Tell
don't
Brendan's
wanna-
job to
that's-
keep that Latina fire plug out of here.
That's what I'm saying. There was like, guys have a notion of like, does every girl want a guy who looks like? No, some of them do, but other, like, you know, you do what's right for your body. So
They want a guy who's got skinny ass legs, lopsided nutsack, and a mediocre cock.
I mean, look, for many years, the biggest insecurity of mine was that I had large legs, you know, because people would be like, I'd like take off my shorts and got like, people would be like, oh my God, your quads are so huge. And I'm like, you know, it would make me, now I'm okay with it because I feel like I have a realistic assessment of myself, but for many years I was insecure about specific, and I would have begged for legs like yours, you know, so grass is always greener, I guess, but how should I wrap this rant up? We're only coming now into a place where people have the luxury of being honest.
Let's also talk about this, King. I don't mean to interrupt you, but isn't it good that we don't have the option to change our appearance when we're kids? You mentioned that you wish you had skinnier calves. I remember when
quads. My calves are skinny.
Yeah, they are.
Still skinny.
That's Freudian slip. I saw those little twigs walking here. King Croc, I interrupted you. What were you saying over there?
Honestly, I want to keep talking about steroids.
Let's get him. Let's get him. Give him
And,
some advice on something he could do. Beginner steroid package.
Oh, here's the thing. Really, I'm more into the philosophical.
No.
Right? I look at it in a different way. I don't know. It seems like you look at it really from an individualistic, person-to-person type.
I can look at it from a few different ways, but I am a steroid nerd more than most people, because you're going to get a range of people. Some guys just go, tell me what to do. I don't want to think about it at all.
Right.
I'm not the biggest steroid nerd, but from the age of 18, like 2 years before I even did my first cycle, and many years I didn't, by the way. I took a few cycles in college, stopped completely, picked up TRT at around 34, and have been kind of, you know, safely experimenting.
How old are you now?
Years.
Damn.
I'm 38. Right.
You
So
look 27.
Oh, stop it. Somebody told me that, I mean, like, this is another thing, you know, haters, every hater, male haters, like, you look 60. I'm like, I mean,
Same thing.
You know, I might look.
They keep telling. They told me I look like 40 something right now. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, cool. You know, once women start saying like you're too old to date, yeah, that's the great thing. When women are attracted to you, it's like that's all I care about. You know,
Right.
like, or they're gonna give
Same.
me the truth. Like, you know, hey, does your pussy get wet when I'm doing this to you? That's all I care about. Not that I'm that shallow, but it's like it's just a much more realistic assessment of like
what I look.
how do
like,
what do my looks do to somebody that actually matters? If you're a guy telling me,
Absolutely.
but my looks, you gay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of sucks.
That's some Brian Callen right there.
Yeah. Delete it too.
he-
I cringe.
That's a Brian Callen joke, actually, and it's relevant to you, King Croc, because he's like, if you're a black guy and you got a pet cat, you're gay.
Hurtful.
No, but I really wanted to know, do you see it as a freedom fight? Sort of a fight for our chemical enhancement rights. And really
They're bonding over it. I
think
guess there's a
about-
thing to
no,
this.
because I know this
a
guy
good
knows.
point. Yeah.
I know you know a lot about
Yeah.
this, and that's why I'm kind of like antsy to really talk about it, because the influence big pharma, corporations,
Yeah.
the mainstream media.
We can drink,
You
but
brought-
we can't inject testosterone into our bodies. We need a doctor's prescription
I'm
for that.
saying-
It's insane. When was the last time somebody died of acute steroid poisoning? It doesn't happen. You could make the argument that over the course of, the doses that a bodybuilder would take over the course of decades, in addition to anytime you hear about a bodybuilder dying, he's at 4% body fat. He's eating however many 1,000 calories a day with a lot of meat, all these different things where you're messing with insulin, growth hormones, you're going to have, left ventricular hypertrophy, all these other things that like you're getting all these comorbidities. It's almost, I would dare say it's impossible to poison yourself with steroids. It is every day. I'm sure people die of alcohol poisoning, for example. And it's the same with wheat, these things where you go, why this, not that?
Mark, I took a bottle of Tren in high school. You think I've done permanent damage to myself?
No, not at all.
I did Tren in college as well.
I put on like 30 pounds in a fucking 2 weeks. You sure I didn't do any permanent damage?
Did you really though?
I put on so much.
Okay.
I got way stronger really quickly.
Okay.
That
way
strength, the despair,
Right.
it was insane. I would do 250 push-ups before bed, just like sets of 25.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because Tren actually isn't the best at putting on muscle. It is potent, but there's other things like if you were just to look to acutely increase your strength in a short amount of time, you would take something like Anadrol. But Tren's unique capacities are to allow you to gain muscle while losing fat. So that's why a lot of people take it pre-contest. It's really good at saving the muscle even in a caloric deficit. The idea there is nutrient partitioning. It takes, it's like, all right, we're going to suck the protein over in the muscle. We're going to use the carbs for this. We're going to burn the fat for energy. So it enhances nutrient partitioning.
We better call up Enrique, the security guard, because King Croc's going to follow you to your car. He's going to try to blow you.
But and Tren is a funny like meme that a lot of guys do. And for some reason, that's like the thing that guys want to do is their first thing. I've taken Tren a few times. The last time I did it, I had a bottle of Tren Ace, 100 milligrams per milliliter. And I was getting ready for a music video, a Hanson music video shoot. The irony, huh? Because I was like, it was like an 80s weightlifting motif. So I'm like, I just have all this shit on hand that
Was
I
this
actually.
modern Hanson?
This was this year. Yeah.
Wow.
I just saw him on Adam Carolla.
Yeah.
So they're
Adam Carolla?
2 Hanson music videos.
Hell yeah.
And they're the best dudes.
They seem super cool.
Yeah, they're really talented and just down to earth because they had that childlike success, but then with music, it's like, oh, you got to keep going. You can't have this one hit. Maybe they did get a lot of money from Mbop, but like they've had to reinvent themselves and, be these touring musicians, but they are genuinely talented, genuinely good people. And that's why I did Tren to prepare for their music video shoot.
To reward their musicianship.
Yeah, hey, look, here's my contribution. But what I noticed is people will talk about the cardiovascular effects of taking Tren, and I noticed that this last time. I was also taking a bunch of Winstrol, a bunch of Tren, a bunch of Test, a bunch of Masteron. Like I literally had this stack of shit. I'm like, I don't want like when you have like a pizza, you're like, I don't want to eat this the rest of the week. I better finish it all now. That was literally but like I was taking so much shit for 10 days. And nothing happened except cardiovascular effects from Tren. You kind of go, it doesn't feel as good to work out.
So I took it while I was training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really hard.
Yeah.
And my cardio was gone.
Yes.
And my amateur, like ooga booga primitive knowledge of what was going on was that, I just put on a ton of muscle really fast. Maybe that muscle's not conditioned yet.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I didn't.
That is a general phenomenon. Like if you were to put on 20 pounds and in a short period of time but you'd notice that after a few months, you wouldn't notice right away your cardio goes down because of the compound.
So it was probably the cardiovascular effects that you're describing in scientific means.
Yeah, and just the increase in blood pressure. I remember being at the gym and I'm like, I don't want to finish. I rarely have that feeling of like, I don't want to do this last set because my head hurts or something. But I was like, this is it's a performance enhancer, but also a performance diminisher. Like it gives you a look that you want, but it doesn't feel
as much as anybody that Tren is like one of the most harshest compounds.
It's because
really hard.
Any injectable like orals that you take, like D-bol, turinabol, Anadrol, Anavar, halotestin, these are all going to be hepatotoxic. So it's going to accumulate some liver damage. However, your liver is super resilient. So it actually goes back to if you just took 8 weeks and then take that time off, your liver's probably going to be fine. Unlike somebody who's an alcoholic, it's like the average alcoholic versus the average steroid user. My ignorant sort of guess would that be the alcohol user who doesn't let their liver recover over the course of years is actually going to be in a much worse state.
Don't tell them what's in that bottle case.
Steroids and alcohol don't mix.
Correct.
Obviously.
But I would argue like alcohol is worse long term for you, and the way that people tend to abuse it when they're really into it because this notion of steroid addiction, but some guys will take Tren for 7 years. Tren is something that over the course of excessive abuse, like if you're doing it at high levels for 7 years, which I've heard stories about, then it becomes toxic to your kidneys and liver to a degree that it can cause disease like that. And it's more toxic than the average injectable. I would argue doing something like test an HGH at a low level, like a TRT dose of test, 2 units of HGH, something like Joe Rogan claims to do, that like you could do that for the rest of your life, and the effects, that the negative health effects that you're going to accumulate are probably slim to, or negligible.
So
to
you
nothing.
mentioned HGH, right? Low dose HGH, two IUs. Does that mean you've taken insulin before, and how did you feel about that? To me,
I
that
have
was
not,
always
because
scary,
up until very recently, yes, it is scary. I've changed my mind on it recently. However, I want to really do my research. There's some good books out there, guys that I follow, such as Vigorous Steve, who's a Dutch bodybuilder. Who's probably, do you know him?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because it's a
course,
relatively
dude. Look at
small. It's not like as big as Greg Doucette's got 1 million, but Vigorous Steve is like, to me, he's an authority. He knows exactly not only how to use it for himself, but he's coached thousands of people. He's written the book on insulin, and it's something that he's reframed my perspective on it as the 3 bioidentical safest compounds you could use would be safe usage of test, HGH, and insulin. What I'm realizing as I start to use, even just experimenting with carbs, like while you're lean, you see, like if you use, for example, HGH and proper carbohydrate usage, you see like it can be the difference between looking very full and not. And that's, I assume, what would the feeling of insulin, because it drives, you can just drive a much higher number of grams of carbohydrates into your muscle cell, right, without getting lost in the bloodstream or giving you this spike in blood sugar that's not healthy for you. And again, and it also seems like a lot of disease is rooted in insulin insensitivity, right? So even,
and this is what I meant when I said big pharma.
Oh God!
Right.
Think about what would happen if the masses knew that steroids could possibly prevent cancers.
Yeah, or even, for example, because people always ask me about the carnivore diet. I haven't tried the carnivore diet, but I love meat, and I did keto for a while, and I was like, I'm 9% body fat on eating a New York strip steak with 5 eggs, 5 pieces of bacon, and avocado. Like, this should be a disgusting fatty diet. But the thing is, without that insulin spike, because you're not eating any carbs, you're utilizing that for muscle rebuilding and energy. And so the real trouble gets into place when you're using fast digesting carbs, sugar, and fats, ice cream, candy, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that screw you over, and that's part of the standard American
Take your
diet.
fucking nerd's rope.
Yeah.
King Croc.
And I love candy,
Your
believe
hero,
me.
your second-
But,
So, King, we're going to wrap up at just about 7. I'm going to let you ask one more question of Mark here.
Yeah.
And I want it to be something deep. I don't want it to be
Yeah.
a scientific question about the insulin breakdown when you're on your second cycle of
what's funny is we deal with this on Fight of the Kid. Like, Brian will ask me what I've had to recommit to being like, if he asks me a serious question, I have to give him a silly answer, because he'll be like, Mark, like, if I wanted to gain 10 pounds of muscle, and then I'll try to answer him seriously, and everyone in the room falls asleep.
Yeah.
And the audience is like, shut the fuck up, Mark. I'm just trying to, so I'm like, I realize, yes, there is a right and wrong way to answer these questions, or like a scientific or at least scientific way, but I'm sorry if this is boring you, is what I'm saying.
Dude, I live and sleep for this type of shit, so
Yeah,
fuck
that's
'em
cool.
if they- I don't really give
That's
a
cool that you know Vigorous Steve, because
Yeah,
he's
dude.
like, I would see
him and Leo.
Yeah.
Vigorous Steve sounds
lunch-
like a rapist. I'm going to throw
Vigorous
that.
Steve, huh?
Or at
Vigorous
least
Steve is not a rapist. He's an awesome guy.
I don't want him around my sister at the very least.
Vigorous.
Yeah, he would fuck the shit out of her. But yeah, these guys are like, it's just
Fucking Vigorous
and now it's not just that they're he's talking about steroids, because Leo, like, you want a deep dive on nicotine and the nootropic effects of,
Yes, sir.
what nicotine can do as a cognitive performance enhancer, go to Leo Longevity. He's put me on to more obscure biohacking things, and he knows a lot about steroids, but also, like, these channels are just like general interest. It's like, you want to know about how the human body works and how to hack it, or even that term is overused, but
Well,
it's
you got to be
interesting
high
unexpected stuff.
IQ, dude, like us.
Well, that is true. To some degree, I go like, well, look, I know if I was stupid, I probably wouldn't be watching Leo and Longevity, because this would be a lot more boring. I hate to like give myself a big up, but sometimes you go like, because people are online going, right, you're a fucking idiot. I'm like, I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, but I know I'm not the stupidest guy, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
as long as you're stupider than me.
Get some
right?
skinny calves, but
Yeah, you're right. It's like, look, you can disparage my calves, but you can't say that I have an 83 IQ.
Okay, so final question, right?
yeah, King.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be that deep, honestly. But
We want it deep.
I'll get Austin. Yeah,
we gotta wait for something or no?
No, it's just the backup cam, but it's the end of the show, so we're probably good.
I was thinking, man, what kind of stack would you design for an intermediate?
See, that's a
bodybuild?
technical question, asshole. I forbade that. I wanted it to be like. So, what do you think about the Chinese blocking shipments of roids off the coast of Mumbai? I thought. Give me some
Also, he kind
conspiracy
of answered it earlier.
But I
Wasn't it
would say
little
this if you
HGH,
wanted to.
testosterone?
Right. I would say
Yeah.
test HGH, learn about insulin and do that, but also add Primo, like an equivalent dose or more. So if you're taking 300 tests, take 300 Primo and add on there because it's probably the safest, cleanest anabolic compound to add on to test, and it adds an anti-estrogenic effect onto test.
We need that in today's society.
Yeah, no more
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
you know, when
so
people go like,
exciting.
I'm going to start taking tests, and then I'm also going to take this anti-estrogen, but it's actually, these aren't the healthiest thing to take, right? You want a little bit of estrogen.
Yeah.
So taking an anabolic compound that kind of competes, or prevents estrogen conversion, that is, and I've taken that kind of stack before, and the aesthetic benefit is great. And it's just really safe and not like, you can do so much with these compounds that aren't trend, that aren't anadrol, but guys want to do like, I want to jump to the most extreme thing,
Absolutely.
But I'm also,
so, buddy,
but
go ahead, Leo.
you got to also remember though, he's probably demolishing his body in the gym
Yeah,
at least 5 days
Right,
a week.
because that's always time anybody asks that, I go, let's take a step back. Are you an advanced lifter?
Right.
And a lot of times
That's where
even
it starts.
I can ask somebody about what their split is, but what I've learned, because even I'd consider myself an advanced lifter. A lot of things I didn't know I could improve upon until I'm talking to Mike O'Hearn. He's giving me small tweaks. So, and I know I can do that for a lot of people, just as far as even intensity, going to failure. A lot of guys don't even know what it's like to do a set of bench press to failure. I've found. I didn't assume that.
I
but
read in Joe Manganiello's book. He has he wrote a book on lifting, and he said try to do 30 pull-ups. He says if you get towards the end of 30 pull-ups
in a row. Oh yeah.
That's that level of
Can you
intensity.
How many people? I assume Mark can, but how many other people in this room can do 30 pull-ups?
No, we're
in a row?
talking about like if you have to stop,
Right.
continue.
Because I
until
was
you
saying
get to
there might
30
be like
pull-ups.
when I was wrestling, I could do 30 in a row, and that's like to do in a row. That's an insane amount of
Yeah,
time.
an
that's
insane-
fucking
it's a lot.
gnarly.
But I agree that doing body weight movements to failure should teach you about intensity because there's only so much you can hack as far as the form to do you can do a really shitty push up, but nothing's gonna fall on you. You can safely do a push up to failure
exactly.
and understand what that
good way to
feeling
start.
feels like.